What will year two under Deshaun Foster look like for UCLA? Well, we are going to give you an early projected record for the Bruins and also break down this 2025 schedule. UCLA had a really tough schedule in 2024, but I would say 2025, it looks a little bit better. Here is that schedule, and we're going to break it down for you. First, we'll look at the non-conference. They're going to play Utah, they're going to play UNLV, and they're going to play New Mexico. Now, Utah, obviously a tough non-conference game there, but Utah wasn't great last year, so that is potentially a winnable game for UCLA, especially playing at home. UNLV going to be a tough one on the road, but I don't think UNLV, when you look at their roster and all the transfers that they've had to bring in, this is kind of a wild card team. I don't really know how good they're going to be. I don't expect them to be quite as good as last year, though. And then New Mexico going to be their easier non-conference game. So now let's look at home and away. In the Big Ten, they're going to play Penn State, Maryland, Nebraska, and Washington at home. On the road, they will play Northwestern, Michigan State, Indiana, Ohio State, and USC. So they're actually going to have 6 road games because they have 5 road games in the Big Ten, and also they have a non-conference game on the road. So usually it does not work out that way. Usually if you play, the years where you're going to have 4 home games in the Big Ten, you're going to have your non-conference games at home, and then you're going to have 5 road games in the Big Ten. Usually they kind of put those non-conference road games on the years where, again, they only have 4 conference road games. So that's, I guess, just a little bit of a challenge there, having to play 6 road games. But, again, it's not too big of a deal, I would say. So that's the home and away. Let's look at who they've added this year and who they dropped off from last year in the Big Ten. So they do not play Iowa, Minnesota, Oregon, or Rutgers. 4 teams that they did play last year. They will not play any of them this year. And then you look at who they added: Maryland, Michigan State, Northwestern, and Ohio State. I would say that's a pretty good trade. Not having to play Iowa, Minnesota, and Oregon. Yes, they did add Ohio State, but Maryland, Michigan State, Northwestern, these are all teams that finish near the bottom of the Big Ten. So I think it's a pretty good trade here. Again, you can kind of cancel out Oregon and Ohio State. Then you look at the other teams. I would say Iowa, Minnesota, and Rutgers definitely better than Maryland, Michigan State, and Northwestern, definitely in terms of where they were last year. So I'd say this is an easier schedule in the Big Ten. They also don't have to play LSU in the non-conference, but they do play Utah, and that's where they'll open things up on August 30th. Games at home. Then they'll play at UNLV on September 6th, and it's still strange to me to see UCLA versus Utah. Like, that's a non-conference game. These teams are not in the same conference anymore. I know it's been a whole year, but it still feels like the Pac-12. Like, it's just weird that there's no Pac-12. Anyways, you got UNLV on the road September 6th. Then they play New Mexico September 13th. Get their first bye week, so they'll play all 3 of their non-conference games before going into that first bye. They play Northwestern on the road September 27th. Then it's at home for Penn State October 4th. Back on the road for Michigan State on the 11th, and back home for Maryland on the 18th. And then on the road to Indiana October 25th. So what you'll notice with this schedule from top to bottom, it's home, away, home, away, home, away. The whole schedule. They don't have any back-to-back home games. They don't have any back-to-back road games. That's interesting. That's I don't know if I've ever seen that on a schedule where it worked out exactly like that. I guess that's a good thing, not having to play back-to-back road games, but it means you're home for a week, and then you travel. So it's interesting. You don't have any of those stretches where you're going to be at home for 2 or 3 weeks. They'll have the bye weeks in there, so they'll have 2 weeks at home when you add in the bye weeks, but still, it's interesting, very interesting to see that schedule and see how it works out. So after their second bye week, they play Nebraska on November 8th, then they play at Ohio State November 15th, Washington at home on the 22nd, and close things out at USC on November 29th. So that's a really tough finish. I think those 4 games are going to be very tough, but you look at that middle part. For Northwestern to Indiana, there are some wins there. Northwestern potentially, Michigan State potentially, Maryland, maybe even Indiana. That's going to be, that 5-game stretch is really going to determine the season, I think, for UCLA. Of course, if they lose to Utah and UNLV in the first 2 games, they're already in trouble. But, I would say overall, that 5-game stretch right there in the middle, that's going to tell us just how good this UCLA team is. So how does this stack up with the other teams in the Big Ten? Right there in the middle. So if you look at their Big Ten conference opponents, last season they went 40-41, so a 49% win percentage. Again, right there in the middle. It's a very average Big Ten schedule, non-conference schedule. it's pretty tough when you got Utah in there and also UNLV. So overall, it's a pretty tough schedule. It's not horrible, but I would say it's definitely easier than what they had last season. No bowl game for UCLA in 2024. How about 2025? Let's see what that projection is going to look like. First, though, let's actually look back the last 4 seasons. So for UCLA, you see with our projected record formula, in 2021 it was 7-5. They went 8-4. In 22 it was 8-4. They went 9-3. In 23 it was 8-4 again. They went 7-5. And then last year it was 6-6. They went 5-7. So you notice 21 and 22 they were beating the projection. Did it by 1 game. And then the last 2 years, they were under the projection by 1 game. So what will that mean for 25? We shall see. But again, here's the schedule, and this is a scale that we use. If it's a 50-50 game, that means it's really a game that could go either way. And so this is all based off of our tier rankings. So UCLA is a tier 4 team. That means if they play another tier 4 team, it's going to be in that 40 to 60% range. It's basically a 50-50 game. If they play a team in tier 5, that's going to bump it up to 61 to 70. But if that game is on the road, then it drops back down to 50-50. So that's, again, how it works. And you look for the easy wins. Really only 1 game. I think New Mexico is one where UCLA should absolutely win. They should be favored by a lot. So that's one that, when we do our actual math, that game will be counted as a win. So 1 game that's pretty much a for sure win. You've got UNLV here. I've got this game in the blue. I think UNLV does drop off from where they were last year. We'll see. New coach there. It's going to be very interesting. A lot of transfers. It's a team that's impossible to predict right now. I believe Alex Orji actually went there. He's probably going to be their starting quarterback. So it's just a team that is very tough to predict. They could wind up being a lot better than this could be more like a 50-50 game. I really don't know. But I usually, when we do these projections, I usually favor the Power 4 teams over the Group of 5 teams. So that maybe ties into this a little bit. I was kind of back and forth on where this one should be because I don't have the Group of 5 teams in my tier rankings. So, yeah, maybe this one should be in the purple. It is on the road, but we did go with the blue. And I will say, if I put this game in the purple, I did check. It would not have changed the projected record. So, if it had dropped to a 50-50 game, it would have changed the projection. So yeah, keep that in mind. So yeah, those 2 games, non-conference games, UCLA should be favored. Let's go to the other side of this. They're going to be another game. So Maryland is a tier below UCLA, and this game is at home. So that is a game that's in the purple. So that's 3 games that UCLA I think will be favored in, but I don't think they'll be big favorites over Maryland. Maybe about a touchdown favorite in that one. So maybe not even that. Maybe it's more like a 5 or 6 point favorite. But let's go to the other side now. Ohio State's the 1 game. They're a tier 1 team, plus this game's on the road. That one does come out in the red. So that one, UCLA, we don't really expect them to have much of a chance in this game. A loss more than likely to Ohio State. Then we go to games in the orange. We got Penn State and Indiana. Penn State's a tier 1 team, Indiana a tier 2 team, but Indiana's on the road. That's why they are in the same spot. UCLA probably going to be double-digit underdogs in both of these games. I would say 16, 17 points. Don't really expect them to win those games, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. And then you've got another game here, USC. That one's in the yellow. This is one where UCLA is going to be, I would say, underdogs by about a touchdown, 7 or 8 points. It is on the road. It's against a USC team that is a tier above UCLA. But rivalry game, you never know. All right, so then you've got the rest of the schedule. You've got Utah, Northwestern, Michigan State, Nebraska, and Washington. You've got a bunch of 50-50 games. So Washington and Nebraska, I think they're a tier just above, or maybe Washington's in the same tier as UCLA. Nebraska, I know, is a tier above them. But that's at home for UCLA, so that's going to give them a chance. Northwestern and Michigan State, a tier below UCLA. And those games are those are in the same tier, and those games are on the road. So obviously, if you play a team in the same tier, it's going to be a 50-50 game, and Utah is there as well. So 5 games that really could go either way, which means UCLA could have a really strong season. Even if they lose to Penn State, Indiana, Ohio State, and even USC, if they win the rest of these games, or maybe only lose one, they could get to 7-5 or 8-4. It's possible, but on the flip side, they could lose a lot of these games. It could be a really rough season. So it's really going to come down to these games. Utah, Northwestern, Michigan State, Nebraska, Washington. Going to come down to those games for UCLA, and really that'll determine the record and the season that they have. But if you average it all out, the projection does come to 6-6. So a bowl game is projected here for UCLA, basically splitting those 50-50 games and getting to a bowl game. They were closer to 5-7 than 6-6. So if that means anything, again, yeah, if we're doing like over-unders here, it's probably 5.5, just because that's close to where this number was. But it does round up to 6-6. So a 6-6 projection for UCLA, which I think would be a pretty successful season for them in 2025. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Give me your thoughts on UCLA. Also, memberships are now available, so if you'd like to check that out, link is down in the description below. You can find out about all the perks and all of that. So yes, become a member today, help support the channel, and if you can't do that, you can help us out by just liking and subscribing, and we'll see you in the next video.